Hey, David, there was recently a controversy about Michael Bloomberg being called an oligarch. Do you believe Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch? So, what is an oligarch? Generally defined, an oligarch is a rich business leader with a lot of political influence. Now, by that definition, of course, Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch in the United States. The term is more commonly used in Russia. And there's a sort of pejorative sense to the word, but that's okay. We'll still use it and use it for our analysis here. If you have money to buy your way to 10% support in a Democratic primary, jumping in very, very late, you are an oligarch in some sense. And Michael Bloomberg is. He's still better than Trump, but in this strict definition, he is absolutely an oligarch. Now, we have to recognize that the circumstances for oligarchs in the United States are very different than they are in places like Russia and Ukraine, where oligarchs have a degree of control there that they simply do not have here. Individual rich dudes with private armies in Russia and Ukraine, that is different. And I know people will say, well, the president gets these mercenaries. I get it, but we are not talking about the same thing. Bloomberg is an oligarch in that he can use his vast wealth to buy his way into the election, but he still needs to successfully deploy the money to convince voters to support him. Otherwise, he won't get a single delegate. He can't simply buy his way into office in the same way that a Russian petro billionaire can. You can buy your way into an ambassadorship, and we see it done quite often. A lot of the difference is really a difference of degree, right? The level of corruption. The U.S. is hugely corrupt in many ways, but it is not nearly as corrupt as Russia is in this sense. So we've talked before, why are they called oligarchs in Russia and just billionaires in the United States? And that's a fair question, but there is a difference. And it's not just Russia and Ukraine. The term oligarch is less used in some African nations, but it would certainly apply there as well. In some of the Islamic theocracies of the Middle East, the term oligarch is not used that frequently, but it would also apply in a way that it simply doesn't in the United States. But for the standards of the United States, for the level of corruption we have, which is corrupt, but it's not what exists in other countries, the U.S., you can actually look at the corruption rankings and see where we are. Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch by any reasonable American interpretation of the term, but we still have a very different situation here than we do in many other countries. The people who went crazy when Michael Bloomberg was called an oligarch, I think it was on MSNBC or whatever. Come on, the guy is essentially an oligarch, although that just means something different here than it means in, for example, Ukraine or Georgia or the country or Russia. Almost all American journalism is controlled by a few massive corporations, and News Voice is a one-of-a-kind mobile app that tracks the bias and corporate interests that infuse the news stories we consume every day, and it's totally free to use. It's a great tool to have on your phone. News Voice is not funded by advertisers or corporate investors. The platform is supported by contributions from users like you. The News Voice app will have some really excellent new features soon, specifically for the 2020 election, but they're wanting to expand their team of independent journalists in order to keep everything running. They're offering special rewards to anyone who wants to give to their new Kickstarter campaign, which can be found at newsvoice.com/kick. Giving a contribution will come with rewards like insider access to group chats with News Voice staff members, as well as access to a variety of special features. Go see what News Voice is all about.